What's going on, people? Welcome to the opposition preview. It's Dee here from Back of the Nest. Thank you for having me on the channel. I'll be giving you the Palace insight into the game ahead of a massive tie for both teams, Ipswich versus Palace. As I've said, thank you for having me on. Let's start off with Palace. Palace so far this season have been a surprise. It has been a surprise due to how we ended last season. We ended the season very strongly, winning 6 out of 7 games. And of course, in the summer, we lost Michael Elise, as well as losing Joachim Anderson and Jordan Ayew. So we lost a few players, but also brought in players from various other clubs and levels, with Nketiah being the most notable one, around £30 million. However, we brought them in very late into the window. They took a bit of time to settle. And also now in hindsight, when we've looked at some of the players that were brought in, especially with Elise going, we've lacked a bit of creativity going forward. And that's been our problem for large parts of the season. And first half of the first part of the season, up until the Spurs game, Palace were struggling. Palace were not only struggling in terms of results, Palace were struggling in terms of style. It just seemed like everything that we done well under Oliver Glasner last year, it just went out the window. It just went out the window. And it was so baffling to see. We understand that new players will come in, but where was the press? That's the biggest thing that we saw under Glasner. Where did that go, for example? And we didn't have it. We didn't have it. And up until the Spurs game, even in the Spurs game, I do remember, for example, before it, that Oliver Glasner's job was under pressure. He was under pressure. He had about 4 games to save his job because of the results. For me, however, and we can talk about it in more depth, Oliver Glasner, I believe, is the right man to lead Palace. We just didn't back him enough. And that's been the story of Palace for a long time. But thankfully, we managed to get a result against Spurs. We got our first win of the season. However, the biggest thing out of that game was not just the win, it was the performance. And since then, I believe we've only lost 1 game in the last 5 or 6. I know we haven't won many, apart from the Spurs game. We beat Aston Villa in the Cup. But we've slowly picked up results here and there. We've had a few injury concerns before this game, even before our previous game against Newcastle, with Eze just coming back from injury. Adam Wharton's been out and Nketiah's been out. So on top of not having creative players, the players that we've had, they haven't been fit. Despite that, we've only lost 1 game in the last 5, which has been positive. The performances have been better, and against Newcastle in our most recent game, it was so baffling to not see how Palace didn't win that game. We was on the verge of losing that game, and even getting a point, it was. I mean, we were happy at the time because 94th minute equalizer. Who won't be happy about that? But then when you're looking at what happened during the game, it was so baffling how we didn't win that game. We limited Newcastle to only 1 shot and 0 on target in 90 minutes. So defensively, we've been good throughout the season. However, our problems have been going forward. And in this game, Eze should be back once again. He played against Newcastle, which is a positive. And hopefully, Cheikh Doucouré starts because we do need creativity all over the place. And Cheikh Doucouré, he's more of like a central midfielder. However, on the ball is very good. It will be too soon for Adam Wharton because he's still out injured. But overall, as Palace fans, lots of Palace fans, majority, I think, are saying that this is like a must win for Palace. Now, I don't know the Ipswich perspective, but I guess if you're looking at Palace as a team, 1 win in 13 games, Ipswich at home must be thinking the same thing. Like, this is a must win for you lot. So I think it's going to be a big game. I think there's a lot of pressure in this game as well. But if Palace continue to play like we have in most recent times, I'm more confident than I have been before the Spurs game, which was about 6 or 7 games ago. We have looked better. Injuries haven't helped us, but we've been unlucky not to win games and lucky to pick up result in games. And that is normally a good indicator that you're going in the right direction. With Palace and I guess Ipswich from the other perspective, from a Palace perspective, I've been very surprised with it, Ipswich. Not that I expect you lot to struggle, but the football that you played have been good for the large parts of the season. It's been exciting. You've been creating chances, but maybe it's down to individual quality on not taking chances similar to Palace, and that's why you're in the position you're in. Against Ipswich, a lot of Palace fans are expecting it to be a tighter, more nervy game than it was against Newcastle. I'm not expecting an easy ride. Against Newcastle, we know what to expect, but against Ipswich, of course, with you lot just getting promoted, it is a bit more difficult to call because I've actually liked how you lot have been playing so far this season. And at home, with a massive game, of course, with your fans definitely going to be up for it against another struggling side. It won't be easy. However, this Palace squad have got a fair share of experience in the side. We've got players who represent the national side. Some of them represent England, of course. We had four players who did join England in the Euros. So that was very nice to see from a Palace perspective. And also, we've got other internationals such as Daniel Munoz, who scored a goal. He could have scored a hat trick against Newcastle. So we've got experienced players. We just have to make sure that the actual game doesn't get to us and our emotions don't get ahead of ourselves and we just keep composed. And I think if we do, we can still create chances. I've seen that Tunzebi, he's out injured, which is a massive plus for Palace because I think he's a solid defender. And yeah, against Newcastle, it was not the chances not being created. It was more about chances not being taken. Hopefully, in this game, we can take the chances. Of course, I'm going to have my Palace bias in this, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 Palace win. I think it should be a tight game for either side. And yeah, apart from this game, all the best for the season. But thank you for having me on the channel.